race to State House, 74 days to go to the polls. First of all, have Kenyans been clear on what the agenda of the front runners are, or are we still involved in the sideshows? We'd like to hear from you at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Daybreak. Let me introduce my guest one more time. Dennis Ndumbi is here, governance and security expert. Kawive Wambua, Deputy CEO Inuka Kenya, is also here with us. Asante sana for making time. Oliver Kipchumba, Advocate of the High Court, is here. Franklin Mukwanja, Executive Director, CMD, will be joining us online in just a bit. Let's start off with the dailies and then get into the rest of the stories we're talking about here. And it's pretty much almost the same. Front page of the Standard, Ruto says, "Forgive me." On the day President Uhuru Kenyatta promised to hand over power peacefully in August, his deputy sought forgiveness for any wrongs committed while he served as his number 2, with Raila Odinga's running mate Martha Karua calling out the hypocrisy of politicians. In fact, let's listen to part of what the deputy president said yesterday when he was seeking forgiveness from his boss and also forgiving those who have wronged him in the process. Listen.
We have failed you in some areas. We have not been as united as we should have been. We have failed in some areas. We ask, and specifically myself, I ask for your forgiveness. I also know that serving as deputy president, I may have fallen short of expectations of my boss, His Excellency the President, my good friend. I ask for your forgiveness. I know also in this journey, many people have hurt me. But on this prayer breakfast, I forgive everybody. I forgive everybody. I want us to go into this election free of the debt of hurt and free of the debt of forgiveness.
Dennis, let me start with you on that. What do you make of the deputy's utterances during the national prayer breakfast?
Thank you very much, Trevor. Good morning, viewers. I think this was an important gesture and an important disposition of the heart because the deputy president indeed was asking and driving us to collective forgiveness. You know what happens there, Trevor, is that the last 4 years, or the last 5 years, if you like, there has been hardline position, dispatch from concepts and ideas. And we have had this side and that side. It's been a weaponized political environment. And what the deputy president was driving us to is a biblical concept that says that you shouldn't come before God if you have a matter with your brother. And I think everybody in this country deserves to drive each one of us to finding political grounds for forgiveness. What I call collective forgiveness. And what does this collective forgiveness mean? It means that we need to dispose of our hardline position and understand that an election is a consensus. It's not a contest. Trevor, one of the terms or nomenclatures that I want dropped in politics today is that one of opposition. Because an opposition deletes and defuncts the concept that elections are about gaining a consensus for our ideas, a consensus in terms of how we need to use our resources, a consensus in terms of how we need to live as tribes, as a brother, as a sister, as one family, as another, one kingdom and another. And I think it's a great disposition for us to go through that line. And also, he was bringing into a knowing that, look, these hardline positions may have caused some faults and some cracks here and there. may have delayed, dispensation of services here and there. And I think going forward, there's another eye that we need to look at politics through. This is the eye of consensus, as indeed is a concept or a doctrine that he has been purporting or pretending, that is called the win-win concept, whereby there's none of us who's losing. The Constitution looks at us from a collective perspective, and I think we really need to drop these hardline positions whereby the state or the nation is weaponized. Disagreements every 5 years. There's a cycle of unforgiveness, and that for the last 50 years then has been the platform in which we operate. The last 4 election cycles, we have seen bloodshed, we have seen contestations and all that. So I think there's a disposition that we need to take us through and find political grounds for forgiveness.
Kawiva, what do you think? Political hypocrisy or honesty?
I think the question of forgiveness is an interesting one, because, when I listened to Ruto, I heard Moi in his last days in power saying, kama nimeumiza roho yako, nisamehe. And, we're talking about that presidency as one where there was gross violations of human rights, the crackdown on dissent and all that. But now, when Ruto says that, whereas it's a good gesture, it's good also to say, what is it that you've failed in? So that we can have a scorecard. We can say, this is what I was supposed to do, this is what I did not do. I come from the Catholic faith, and every time that you are going to receive sacrament and you have a sin, you go and specifically say, I did ABCD, I did ABCD, and then you are given penance. You are told, go and pray ABCD, because it is very clear what you have done. But saying that I have fallen short in certain areas, I may have, those are general statements. It's the beginning of the journey. And therefore we should go to the next step of saying, what are these things that I was supposed to do, me and the president and whoever, we are supposed to do, we did not do. So then we can say, what is it then that we say for penance? How do we deal with the issue of collective healing? Because when my brother talked about collective healing, there are people who can't afford fuel. There are people who can't afford, basic commodities, which is, according to the Constitution, Article 43, a function of the government. Ruto and his brother, the president, have been in charge of governance. They have been in charge of the government for the last 10 years. So what are these things that, the specifics that we need to be aware of? Because, going to forgiveness, even there's this character in the Bible who asked Jesus, what do I do to get to heaven, to get saved? And Jesus told him, go and sell what you have and come and follow me. Basically, go and remove all the things, all the encumbrances that affect your character, your godliness, and then we can be able to discuss from that point. I think that is the beginning of the journey. It's a good gesture, but you have to go the whole org. If we are going to get healing in this country, if you have got to right the governance issues. So,
Kipchumba, let me bring in Kipchumba on this. Kipchumba, what are your thoughts on this? Is it political hypocrisy, or is it just being the bigger man and saying this is where we have fallen short and therefore forgive me?
Thank you, Trevor. I think we have for the longest time taken politicians for hypocrisy, so that even when they mean it, we are not sure of what they are saying. But from where I sit and going to the season we are going, because we are getting now to the real madness.
Real madness.
Because we are going to where names will be, people will call each other names, and then also looking at the past. Post-handshake Kenya, how has William Ruto been treated, what has transpired in our political geography. That is where I understand his forgiveness to be coming from, because maybe he has acted in a manner where some people thought he should have acted otherwise, but being the last national prayer breakfast, it was in order for him to seek forgiveness and for him also to forgive anybody, because from where I sit, he's the person who has been hurt the most. With all the things I've been going through around, the people he helped have stabbed him in the back and all manner of things. So at the end of the day, for him to reduce some part of the tension of people saying, there is this, Trevor, that what will happen if so-and-so comes? What will happen if Raila comes? You remember our elections for the last 4 or 5 electioneering cycles have been around Railaphobia and Railamania. So I think in seeking forgiveness, he was just extending the leaf, and also he's a Christian. So anytime you come to such a moment, you will seek forgiveness. And it is not only William Ruto who sought for forgiveness. It is only that he did it specifically to his boss also. But it began with Ken Lusaka, the speaker. He said, I have served my 5 years. I thank you people. And also as I leave, I'm saying, forgive me if there was a time when, you know, just like how an engine operates, that is how when you serve humanity operate. For you to achieve public good, there are a few people who you might step on their toes. But as you exit, you have to remind them that, yo, check here, I stepped on your toes, not because I wanted, but because of the collective good. It goes back to the principle of how you drive a matatu. At times, you have to hit one person to save the 72. That is the good old driving school principle. So it boils down to that. But as we move to the election, I think it is a good thing for leaders to have that point of sincerity. And my plea to them will be then, live for the forgiveness you have sought as politicians. I know the home stretch is here, 74 days to the prize day. I know it will be tough. But we are asking the Kenyan politicians to know that even after all this, we will still need the nation Kenya to continue being one as it has been.
Okay, fair point. Let me bring in Mukwanja before I come to you, Dennis. I know you have a response. Franklin Mukwanja, what do you make of this, the issues that transpired at the National Prayer Breakfast, being the last one for President Uhuru Kenyatta?
Thank you, Trevor, and good morning from Mombasa. Good morning to my fellow panelists. I think the prayer breakfast was pitched at a good level. Yes, there was the need to speak these things about forgiveness because leadership requires a great deal of compassion. And when you're in a leadership role, you're forced to look at others in a critical light, especially when you are managing groups of people that are diverse, like politicians, like at the level of the president and the deputy. And therefore, you need to be human. You need to allow people to make mistakes. You need to, you know, encourage them to look at things from a different perspective. And that, I think, was going to be inevitable, that these two gentlemen that have projected very low common decency between them, to begin to have a conversation that looks at how do we look better in the eyes of the people that elected us. And particularly the deputy president making that first move is good. I don't remember the president coming up as well, but I hope he has an opportunity on 1st June as well to extend that olive branch. You recall President Moi did that as well. And I think it's a good thing because then we begin to see that the transition can have a good feel. Whoever wins, whether the president is going to hand over to his deputy or the deputy will be retiring with him, you have a good feel around the transition and not necessarily what we experienced during Kibaki's, President Kibaki's funeral, that they cannot have a handshake. And those are generally things that have to be encouraged. Because common decency is very important for leadership at that level, and forgiveness is very key. Forgiveness makes it, you know, a great deal of compassion in terms of leadership. And I think the conversation yesterday at the prayer breakfast then made sense for the perspective.
Yeah. Dennis, you know, Kavive wants people to confess to the sins that is highlighted. Say this is what we did and therefore we are sorry. Not just a blanket sorry, forgive me. Yeah. What do you make of that? Why don't we just own up and say, okay, fine, this is what we've done to the economy. It is unfortunate. Forgive us. This is what we've done in terms of integrity. It is unfortunate. Yes.
And even the context as his response, the context is, one, this power that people at the presidency exercise is donated, is delegated by citizens.
Yeah.
So the responsibility of saying what I have done should be to the citizens, not to individual people, so to speak. Yeah. So that then we are looking at, when we say forgiveness, you have a TOR, you have a terms of reference for the work that you are doing. for citizens, because they have delegated the power to, they have elected you to do that. So what is it that you've done? I think that's the context.
I think we have to draw a dichotomy and a line between amnesty and forgiveness. You know, what he's talking about is amnesty. Whereby we can't, there's a process for gross human rights violations. And it's true, when you look at the last 4 years, we've gone through a pandemic. We've gone through a very tough time in the country. You have the question of COVID billionaires and many other things. Those are judicial attributes. You know, there's a progression. You know, they are constitutional arms and bodies that would take anyone with a criminal background or a criminal activity through that penance. And therefore, at the end of the day, what the Father does in the Catholic Church, he offers mercy to a murderer. You understand? But in earthly courts, you know, he's talking about different dimensions and different perspectives. Now he'll make me speak as a reverend, and I don't know if to that dimension now, because I have to ask for an altar call if that happens. The truth is, those are different courts. You understand? A father can offer mercy. A judge cannot. You understand? At the end of the day, justice excludes mercy. There has to be a sentence. So, you know, but the president can be at a place where he can offer that amnesty for human rights violations. But what the deputy president was talking about, he was not asking for that amnesty. Technically, he was discussing about rage, frustrations. The last 4 years have been tough for him, and I bet they've been tough for everybody anyway. We have seen, we've been in this country. But what he was asking for, he was asking for us to deflate. You know what happens? Political rage is important for campaigns. It actually furthers your cause in campaign, but it hurts democracy. You understand? When we look at the flares in this country, when we look at the architecture of post-election violence, it is attributed to political rage. And that political rage, there has been unforgiveness. Yeah. And I think going to the next 3 months thereabout, if you like, and actually less than 3 months, what we are likely to see is a rage that is brutal. You understand? We have a great election. Every election year, I tend to think things are going to be easier. But now you have one where, you know, you have two bloated coalitions and everybody else everywhere else, you understand? And then you have Kenyans in the middle. So the truth is, we are likely to veer off from democracy, from an ideal-based election, from discussing economy, from discussing the hole that the Kenyan is in, from discussing fuel prices, oil prices, food prices, name it, cost of medical care. We are likely to move away from those ideals because of political rage and further campaigns and say, ke mondo ke muchawi huyu, mujinga ule, fala ule, and many of those things. And what we need to do is deflate and invite everybody on the table and draw ourselves to that conclusion and prevent the nation from flaring. And I think Emeritus Bishop said it very well. The hypocrisy is knowing that you have a score to score with somebody, and then you're hiding it behind politics, and therefore you'll want to hurt them. And I think the truth is saying, look, we are transient. We will end at one point, but Kenya will still stand. But if we continue in this trajectory of contestations, we are definitely going to hurt democracy. We're going to hurt a fragile nation that hardly has realized democracy, you know, for the last COK anyway. And I think it's a good place to tell politicians, please, we're not interested in those fights. We are interested in discussing ideas and ideals.
However, it's important to mention what Dennis has talked about, the dispatch from concept and ideas. And I see here Kelvin Kea is also saying, as a country, we should ask the questions, what is our vision? What is our agenda? Who can lead us to meet our vision? Has there been a clear contest of ideas from where you stand? What is this elections about in the next 74 days? Do Kenyans know that the choice of this is what I'm choosing from this other contest? Is there a clear agenda?
Let me say that right now, there isn't a clarity in terms of the agenda, what it is that, and that's why my brother here is saying that we will move away from ideas and move to contestation and abuse and heated debate. But that is wrong, because this country belongs to all of us. And in this country, there are certain things that we want to be realized. And people struggled for a very long time. From 1985, we consider the active struggle. From 1985, when Joya said, we need to renegotiate the governance of this country, up to 2010, when we got a new constitution. And that constitution stipulates the things that we need to do, the things that leaders need to have. That constitution talks about a whole chapter dedicated to integrity.
Yeah.
And therefore, what is it that leaders need to have, values they need to espouse for them to lead this country? Basically, the struggle from independence until now has been getting the country from our leaders to citizens, so that citizens have a voice. Citizens have got things that they need to be said. But every so often, we are caught in a whirlwind where we have to make emotional decisions as opposed to reasoned reasons, arguments, and putting the things on the table that we need to be dealt with. So I would pray that we do not go that way. We've seen those temperatures in 2007, in 2013. In 2007, it was about the MOU. In 2013, it was about the ICC indictees and whether or not they should be elected. Yeah. And the decisions that we made in 2013 will live with us for a very long time. Because even the Supreme Court saying, this is not our jurisdiction, give this back to IBC to determine who can vie for leadership, is something that is biting us until today. But we need to refocus on citizen issues. We need to refocus on issues of integrity and leadership. We need to, not the fights, not individual fights saying, Trevor forgive me, or Ruto saying, Uhuru forgive me. No. Yeah. These are employees. They are guys who have been elected to serve certain things, and these things are outlined in a constitution document. That constitution has not been embedded more than 10 or 11%, except for devolution. What else has happened? Yeah. If you look at the question of human rights, if you look at the Article 43 rights, if you look at the questions of access to justice, a bit has happened there. But largely, many of the things, including even the question of gender parity, Parliament has refused to pass a law. The court has ruled Parliament should be disbanded. Uhuru has refused to disband the Parliament. So basically, nobody thinks about Kenyans. Nobody thinks about Kenya. They think about themselves, grandstanding. Na mimi nitafanya, na mimi nita... that kind of dances is what we are treated to. Okay. And at Kenyans, we are like, most people are just sitting and observing, huyu amesema hivi, huyu anasema hivi. And that's why Kenyans have converted this into a fundraising initiative. Ukikuja, you have money. Give it to me. And then now you can say what you have to say, because anyway you are going to say it. Okay. Yeah. So it's better you get your advantage, which is a very bad place we are in as Kenyans.
I think Trevor,
is there a clear electoral agenda from where you stand in this contest? 74 days to go.
It is there.
Okay.
What is the unfortunate situation is, Kenyans, just like what Jesus told the Israelites back then, was that those who follow me should not follow me for the sake of miracles. They should follow me for believing in Christ. Hallelujah. And the second coming. So at the end of the day,
we all pastors.
Look at it this way.
No, the man is preaching.
We have gotten so much into the miracles performed by politicians in the name of handouts, in the name of insults, in the name of all the wrong things. And the media has perpetuated this one because we do not give the bigger sense to the agenda. We give the bigger sense to the insults. The more the insults, that is what the media will say. And we understand the Madokian principle of media has engulfed all our thinking, because we must make profits out of this thing. And what makes profit is not you selling bottom-up agenda, or I don't know what Azimio runs on. Because at the end of the day, also, as what my good friend has talked about, there is the part of Gonya. You understand from where you come from, where you must remove some handouts. Yes, the handouts. It has overtaken our overall thinking or our overall view of what politics should be. Because at the end of the day, politicians should come and tell us, I will do ABCD. That is how we deepen democracy. Politics in itself is a process that we are supposed to gain so much. One is a process when we are supposed to know in the next 5 years, this is what the country should run on. In the next 10 years, these are the problems. Yeah. Issues of water, unemployment, issues of making sure that we live up to the Constitution and what it says. So at the end of the day, even now, when you listen to the rallies of Kenya Kwanza, there is so much being said, but what does the media capture? The media capture sibling rivalry, who abuse the other. When you listen to what was said by Azimio yesterday in Butula, what did the media capture? It captured Raila scoffs at Ruto's land policy. But there must have been other issues that were discussed in that meeting. So at the end of the day, it is what we give credence that Kenyans will fly with. If the media wanted to package this, it will just go for the message of the agenda of a politician. And also, if the media wants to reduce mediocre politicians, it can reduce them, because you give credence to those who speak sense. And my fear, 74 days to the election, what will define this election will be more about the agenda of the coalition and the agenda of the person. Because if you listen and you go to the grassroots, there are people who are independents, who are not from the mainstream political parties, but they are having a lot of traction in the ground. Why? Because Kenyans also in their own wisdom are getting to appreciate some of these things. So my plea to the media will be, let us go with the Kenyans. Okay. Let us make sure that the Kenyan people are allowed to engage with these people. And also let us call out mediocre politicians, because it is this system that gave us Sonko. It is this system that gave us Waititu. It is this system that has given us all these politicians. So at the end of the day, Kenyans must know that the voices we've been speaking to in these forums, they have a chance in 74 days to help us fight it at the ballot. Okay. Like the question of corruption, the question of what and what. We can help fight half of our problems through the ballot.
Okay. All right, let me bring in Franklin Mkwanja before I take a quick break on this. Mkwanja, are you seeing a clear electoral agenda 74 days to the polls?
Trevor, I think there is a semblance of issue-based politics in this election. There is one side that has emphasized on the priority of the economy, in as much as there is still hollowness and certainty of how the approach is going to be. There is the other side that still firmly believes that we need to tweak and tinker with our constitution as it is, so that we can be able to improve on a number of issues, including the 9-point agenda under the BBI. So there's some semblance of ideas. But I think we need to reflect broadly, Trevor, by asking ourselves the question of how can we revitalize the role of political parties and rebuild the trust that is central to electoral democracy. I ask this because we can continually see global trends that the relevance, popularity, and the influence of political parties is on the decrease. And political parties are generally under stress. As political and civic actors, we must be clear that the role of political parties can play in a who's going to be, what other better instruments for social dialogue, for fostering consensus, for representing all social sectors and cleavages do we have other than strong.
All right, we seem to be having a bit of a technical challenge there with Franklin Mkwanja. I'll get back to him in just a bit. But send in your views at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Daybreak. We're taking a quick break. When we come back, we're still talking about, are you seeing a clear electoral agenda? We'll pose one of them. One of them is the land question. There's a 1 million acre acquisition that was proposed by the Deputy President, but immediately rubbished by the other side. Let's talk about that in just a bit. And the integrity question, Chapter 6, is it just on paper and nobody cares about the implementation? That coming up in just a bit. It's all about the race to State House. 74 days to go. Remember, you're the one with the power. Okay? So your voice comes first. See you in just a bit.